Alrighty, so now here we are. If you're watching on YouTube, managed to get the uh, visual draft board. We're a little small. Let me see if I can make this bigger. Okay, sorry. But anyways, John, you are technically on the clock here. So you are technically the Jacksonville Jaguars. Got the first overall pick. Everyone is saying tank for Trevor. Are you living up to the fans' expectations?
I am. To me, I don't consider myself on the clock until pick number 3 because
Okay.
it's Trevor Lawrence. I put him as the number one quarterback. They need a quarterback. It's the NFL draft. If you have the number one pick and you need a quarterback, you take one. So you're taking Trevor Lawrence.
Alrighty. So let's put us right there. Actually, a better spot. Okay. So let me pick draft Trevor Lawrence.
Which
Boom.
also, for anyone watching, if you can see on the screen, there's this board of players. This is not our rankings. This is the Draft Network. Shout out to
Yeah,
them.
yeah,
If you want to do mock drafts, you can check them out. But so when you see, certain players ranked at certain spots, this is not where we necessarily put them.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I do have a big board, but yeah, definitely looks much different. So let's. I mean, once again, I don't really feel like I'm on the board technically.
Yep.
There's not much, especially now. I think everyone knows after the Sam Darnold trade. This is my boy Zach Wilson. Everyone's probably heard me lament on him before. I'm not going to spend much time, but yeah, Zach Wilson here. For the Jets, lock it in. And then so now, as you mentioned, now is where it gets interesting. Um, so who you
So
got here at number 3? You have the
so
San Francisco 49ers, Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. You traded up for this.
all right. So I will say the interesting part here for me is I'm drafting in. I'm going from the perspective of what I think the team is going to do in real
Okay.
life. Because for some of these picks that I would make, my decision might be different than who I think the team is realistically going to pick.
Okay.
So that's like
Is that
I'm
how
trying
you're
to
doing
pick
this?
as
Okay.
if I am Shanahan and John Lynch right now, as opposed
Okay.
to just John
Just you.
Harris.
Okay.
Yeah, because we're gonna do my mock draft later, and that'll be where it's just my picks. So,
Interesting.
and I know that the media narrative around this pick has sort of changed. All of a sudden, I think Justin Fields is now the favorite betting wise to be selected at this spot. I still think it's going to be Mac Jones. So I'm taking Mac Jones here. The main reason is I just don't get why there'd be so many credible sources around the 49ers organization that would be saying that they feel so confident it's Mac Jones. I mean, Chris Sims said it, and we know that he's close friends with Kyle Shanahan. They're both UT alumni. So they know each other. They've been around each other. They have a good relationship.
Well,
Adam
what he
Schefter.
thinks too. I think that's the biggest part. Because
Yeah.
I think I just want to inject. Like 2 years ago, I think when they drafted McGlinchey, like he had no foresight, but I remember they were doing a mock draft, and he's like, "Oh, McGlinchey's his type of tackle." And like
Yeah.
I remember after the draft, someone that also listened to his old podcast, they made some money because they put a bet that McGlinchey would go at number 10, and he went at number 10. So he has a very good
Yeah.
idea. Sorry to interject of what Kyle wants.
And he also has just a proven track record of like knowing the QBs and who's going to be good and all that kind of stuff. And we know that Shanahan, he's an offensive genius. So I don't think that he would, pick some bum and not know what he's getting himself into. So yeah, I mean, Sims said it. Adam Schefter has come out and said that he, is pretty sure that Mac Jones is the pick here. Mel Kiper has come out and said that he's about 80% sure that Mac Jones is the pick here. I mean, these are credible sources that are all behind Mac Jones being the selection. And the only argument there about why would there be so much hype is potential smoke screen, but there's no reason to do that in the spot. You're not worried about either of the two teams in front of you taking him. You're not worried about any team trading up above you. To me, there's just no reason for all of this talk about Mac Jones, unless it was like complete made up BS by these sources and they have no idea what they're talking about. I don't see why there'd be all this talk about Mac Jones at number 3 unless there was some credibility to it. So I think the Niners are going to take Mac Jones.
Okay. So yeah, I agree with your mindset and philosophy there. Just they don't trade unless they're confident in Mac Jones. And like we mentioned
Right.
before, nothing the floor hasn't fallen out in regards to Mac Jones and what he, him the person or anything of that sort, like no injury thing. So I agree with you. I would have made that pick too. Now, four, I think four is truly the interesting one. What the heck are the Falcons going to do? I think their owner, Arthur Blank, has said he likes Trey Lance, but they just restructured Matt Ryan's contract, and Matt Ryan's still, I think, signed for another couple of years. They didn't trade Julio so the fire sale didn't happen that many expected. So, in my eyes, it's tough. They got with Arthur Smith, the new head coach, coming from Tennessee. They're gonna want to run the ball, but obviously I don't think it's high enough for a running back. And I know they have a good tight end, Hayden Hurst, but I just don't think they can pass up Kyle Pitts. I mean, you have Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, and you can get a running back early in the second, third round. We've seen it before, and I think they signed Mike Davis, and he was solid last season for the Panthers. So even if they don't, regardless, getting a second tight end, we're seeing a lot more two tight end sets. I mean, get another tight end. Kyle Pitts is a weapon too. He can, if in passing situations, he can still line up in the slot, and he's just a mismatch. So going Kyle Pitts, I think that's the best choice. They could go edge rusher, but just because they've gone edge rusher in the first round before and it's failed, Tack McKinley, for example, did not work out very well, and I just feel like it's a touch too early to get our guy Quiddy Pay or even some of the other edge rushers. So maybe that's why they want to trade back. Maybe they feel like they really need an edge rusher, but they don't want to take him at 4. But obviously, this is a mock. We're not doing that. So I'm gonna go Kyle Pitts. Although it was tempting to go cornerback here with like maybe a Caleb Farley or a Patrick Surtain because they do need corner help. But once again, they also invested a first round pick in a corner last year who played pretty well too. The kid out of Clemson, I'm forgetting his name, but he played pretty solidly. So I'm thinking it's going to be Kyle Pitts here. But this is a wild pick. I really no clue, but Kyle Pitts is who I have going to the Atlanta Falcons. John, you are on the clock here, or you and the Bengals are on the clock. Are you getting Joe Burrow's boy, or are we protecting Joe Burrow, or are you changing it up with
Um,
something else?
to me, the selection is really obvious here. And I mean, we're both on the same page. The only thing that I think could throw a wrench in here is if Kyle Pitts is available,
Hmm.
because I think he's a very enticing prospect. But if he's gone at 4, you have to go Penei Sewell. Even if Kyle Pitts is there, I still think Sewell's the best pick. I mean, just looking in that photo of Joe Burrow, like I think with the new uniforms,
Yeah,
and he's got the big scar on his knee.
yeah.
Like, come on, like you don't want that to happen again. And also, I mean, the Browns just got Clowney. Like, you don't want to you're gonna have to deal with T.J. Watt, Miles Garrett, now Jadeveon Clowney, and like
And
the whole,
Baltimore
Ravens
defense because they
blitzing.
love
Yeah.
blitzing. Yeah.
So like they're in their division. That's 6 games with just a lot of pressure being put on you, and with the state of their offensive line, and just even the talent that Penei Sewell is, the spot that they're in. I mean, how many teams would just absolutely kill to have a franchise quarterback like Joe Burrow and a franchise left tackle like Penei Sewell? I mean, that's the dream right there. That's what you want. I don't see how you can pass on him, especially for a receiver. As good as Jamar Chase is, you have T. Higgins, you have Tyler Boyd, you have solid talent at that spot. It would just be overkill at that point when you have such a clear need at offensive tackle. So Penei Sewell, that's the guy. It's so obvious that if the Bengals don't do it, I feel so bad for Joe Burrow.
Yeah, I mean, but who knows? Maybe it's what he wants. But anyway, so Penei Sewell, offensive tackle at Oregon, taken at 5. Once again, another interesting pick, Miami. I feel like at this point it's just what wide receiver will they take? Do they like Jamar Chase more? Do they want to, but do they want to bring in Devontae Smith, who was previously worked with Tua? And I just feel like regardless, you go Jamar Chase, especially this is a team that dealt with injuries. With they still have Devontae Parker. I don't know why couldn't remember his name. Who's been a solid receiver when healthy, but that's been the big asterisk when healthy. Same thing. They're taking a 1-year rental on Will Fuller. I mean, Preston Williams is solid, but once again, coming off an ACL, he came out an ACL injury last year and wasn't really himself. So, and I know, I think, once again, if Kyle Pitts falls here, this is a possibility. I just don't think that Brian Flores would take a tight end that high, even if he did fall. But so yeah, really, it's between my eyes, wide receiver or maybe offensive lineman. But especially since is already off the board, I feel like it has to be one of the two wide receivers, either Chase or Devonta Smith. I would go with the Jamar Chase, just the more sure thing in my eyes. And I'm sure you feel the same way. Both size, speed, and not that I personally knocked Devonta Smith's size, but there's absolutely no doubts about that Jamar Chase will still be able to physically withstand the NFL. So going Jamar Chase here, get to a perimeter guy, a reliable perimeter guy, and if Tua's not the guy, then you have multiple picks going forward. So then whoever you replace him with is gonna have Jamar Chase still. So lock it in. Jamar Chase is who I have going at 6 to the Miami Dolphins. All right, John, you are at 7 with the Detroit Lions. With, new man Dan Campbell in the house. Who's biting kneecaps? Who you got?
Oh man, biting kneecaps. That was
Who's
so
who's
weird.
the best kneecap biter on the board is the real question at this point.
um, this pick is the to me the most interesting in the top 10 because I could see them take anything. We know that they have Jared Goff, but are they sold on him? Do they want to move on from him after a few years and they're already looking at quarterback? Because this could be where Trey Lance or Fields or Mac Jones or whoever's there. I mean, they could go here. Do they trade? Because we know a lot of teams might want to trade up. They could take offensive lineman, they could take receiver, they could take corner. I mean, they need so much. They really need a ton. But to me, based on the fact that they lost Kenny Galladay, there's just not a whole lot of weapons there outside of DeAndre Swift, outside of TJ Hawkinson. I mean, in the wide receiver group, there's not a lot for them to work with. I think that they're going to want a young receiver, be creative with them, all this kind of stuff. So to me, it's between Jalen Waddle and Devontae Smith. It's kind of hard for me to pick here because my own personal rankings, I would take Waddle, but I just have a gut feeling that Smith is going to go before Waddle in the draft. And so I am taking Mr. Devontae Smith for the Detroit Lions. I don't know. There's just this sort of feeling that he brings the sort of allure that the Lions might, want.
Gotcha. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to. Anyway, all right. So yeah, I would agree. I mean, especially since they lost Kenny Galladay, like you said, and I think they also lost Marvin Jones, so they really don't have any wide receivers. And then, even if they maybe they want to see at least a year of Jared Goff, they still have him on the books. So at least get a wide receiver, and if it doesn't work out with him, like you just mentioned, go you can find another quarterback next year via free agency or the draft. So yeah, I got no issues with that. So here we
And
are.
if
Go
it
ahead.
doesn't work out too, they're probably going to be terrible this year, so they could just get a quarterback next year.
True, true, true. So all right, here's where it gets interesting too. Your boy Matt Rule at 8, Carolina Panthers here. This is where I think they really. So here, I'm thinking cornerback, maybe offensive tackle, but they traded for one last season. I know it was just why am I blanking on his name? Anyway,
Russell Okung.
And Okung was I'm not sure he's still on the roster, but I don't think they'll get quarterback. I think we already excluded that with the Sam Darnold pick. So here I'm looking at my board right now. I mean, I just think it's tough because they went all defense last year. So I'm assuming
Right.
they're gonna go. I would assume they would go offense. So here, let me go find him. He's not this person's. Where is he? Dang, do they really not have?
You can type his name too in the top right.
Thank you. Yeah. Where is Christian Darius? Christian Darrisaw. He's at 15. Okay. I just think offensive tackle. They just franchise tagged the right tackle, and although they have him this year, who knows if they have him going forward. So regardless, get a Christian Darrisaw, and if you at least plug him on the left side, and then boom, you have your two tackle spots pretty much figured out. They still have Greg Little, who maybe can kick inside a guard. Second round pick from a couple of years ago, and yeah, just and I will say because once again, Atlanta's like a big tipping point. If they don't get Kyle Pitts and maybe they trade and the team trades up to get a quarterback, I could feel like it would be a very good destination for Kyle Pitts. I mean, obviously
Yeah.
the first three, but that could be a very. I mean, can you imagine Joe Judge, Matt Rule, and I mean Sam Darnold will have no excuse. He went from
Right.
no weapons to Christian McCaffrey can do multiple things. Kyle Pitts can do multiple things. I'm sorry, this turns into Kyle Pitts, but regardless, in regards to, if he's not there, I think Darisaw, like we've mentioned before, like I'm not sure if he's your number two. He was your number two, right?
Yeah, he was. He
Okay, so
was.
both our number two tackles protect your guy, whether it's Sam Darnold or whoever going forward. So Christian Darisaw is my pick at number 8. So here we go for you, going a mile high in honor of 420. um, Denver Broncos at 9. It's put up or shut up for Drew Lock and Vic Fangio. So who are they getting at 9, John?
Denver, another interesting spot. I think corner, if they were going to go defense, they take corner. Their linebackers are sort of figured out for the most part. They could use a middle linebacker. So this is where, Michael Parsons maybe comes in. But honestly, my gut says if Justin Fields is there at 9, the Denver Broncos are going to take him. I don't think that they are sold on Drew Lock. I specifically don't think that John Elway is sold on Drew Lock. I think that at this point, that he's seen what he needs to see from him. And I think that he probably has in mind that he wants to move on. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But there's just this gut feeling for me that if somehow Fields is there at 9, which realistically, I think a team trades up, which we're not doing trades in this, but I think a team trades up and gets, into the mix for another quarterback, whether it's Fields or Lance. But yeah, I think that they take Fields at 9 because they sort of know what Drew Lock is for the most part. There is still some mystery based on injury concerns and all this stuff. But I mean, they have good receivers in Sutton. They have Jerry Jeudy. They have Hamler. They have Melvin Gordon at running back. They have an okay offensive line. They're not amazing. And then their defense, they're going to have Von Miller healthy. Bradley Chubb, obviously. They lost AJ Boye. So that's where, the corner need comes in. But I think just with a deep cornerback class and the ability to potentially get a franchise quarterback if they're not sold on Drew Lock, I don't know. I feel like Justin Fields is who they're going to take.
All right, so happy Fields. My only concern is it's Vic. Like I said, Vic Fangio is kind of on his put up or shut up here.
Right.
And I'm just not sure if he might just go a linebacker just because he doesn't want to use his first round pick on a quarterback that especially may not be ready right away with this season. So,
But also, I mean, we've talked about it before to where, for example, like when the Chargers got Herbert, obviously didn't end up working out for them for Anthony Lynn. But if you get a quarterback and it works out, maybe that buys you another year to where the front office says, hey, we liked what we saw this year. We liked how you worked with this young quarterback. Maybe we want to see more. I don't know. I mean, ultimately, to me, I'm not even thinking of Vic Fangio. I'm thinking of John Elway and just what I think he wants to do. Because
but
I wouldn't be surprised if he cleans house, he gets rid of Fangio after this year. Drew Lock's gone, the whole deal.
I just feel tough because as an executive too, he just drafted Drew Lock 2 years ago. So,
But I mean, also,
I think if he gets another quarterback, there's going to be the stigma is going to grow. John Elway can't pick
right.
quarterbacks.
Yeah, which I mean, the Broncos have realistically been looking for a franchise quarterback since John Elway. Like, I mean, they had Peyton Manning for those years,
but
like
that was a free agent pickup. That wasn't someone they drafted and develop.
And that was also at the end of his career. That's not your franchise QB. That's like, a guy that, hey, we're going to compete for a ring for a few years and go for it, but they're looking for their decade plus long marriage with a young QB that they can find. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I could hear a lot of other arguments for other players, but I just have this deep feeling in my gut that John Elway is losing patience with Drew Lock because he wants to win, and he knows that they have a roster that's pretty talented. And maybe that means that Fields is the pick.
All right, so we'll see. We'll see. That's a very interesting one, but I do agree with you. I think a team might trade up and grab Fields then, within the 5 to 9 range. So he may not even be available for them. But here's like John wanted. This is where things are interesting. Number 10, Dallas Cowboys. I think cornerback is obviously the most important need here. It just becomes a question of Caleb Farley, Patrick Surtain. Considering that they need, especially Dan Quinn coming. I think he's your DC. Just got fired from being a head coach. You're gonna want some stability, and I think they're gonna go with Patrick Surtain, just because the back injury. We've already mentioned Dallas has had issues with their current players dealing with injuries. And I think that Surtain will be the safer pick, and he's just a better scheme fit for that Seattle, press bail scheme. So going Patrick Surtain here at number 10 for Dallas. I mean, Caleb Farley could be in the conversation, but once again, it just seems like teams are very scared of his medicals, and the fact that he sat out last year. So those two things going against him. But anyways, so I'm sure you're gonna hate to make this pick, but at number 11, the New York Giants are on the clock.
Yeah. Obviously, I mean, these next two selections, I really don't want either of these teams to hit a home run here. But I fear the Giants are going to make a really good pick here, and I think that they're going to take Micah Parsons, linebacker out of Penn State. I mean, I've heard talk of them getting a wide receiver, but I mean, they have good talent there. They have Kenny Galladay.
They just signed him to a big contract.
Yeah, a big contract. They have Sterling Shepard still.
Darius
They have
Slayton.
Darius Slayton. They have Evan Ingram. I mean, Barkley's coming back. Like offensively, they have all the weapons. Like they shouldn't have. I mean, there should be no excuse for Daniel Jones this year outside of like the Jason Garrett excuse, which I'm a firm believer that it is a real thing. You know, Jason Garrett, he has his flaws. But I mean, so that's why I don't think they take receiver because this is a team that won what six games last year, 7 games last year.
I think so. I think
So
they're 6-10.
yeah, and so I think adding receiver after your big Kenny Galladay signing, it just feels a little redundant when you have more holes. Blake Martinez was solid for them, but this is a team that every year, I know our friend Roan, Giants fan, every year they always want the top linebacker in the draft, and they tend to not get them. And I think this year, Parsons and the talent that he is, I know he's fallen a little bit because there's some personality issues or off the field stuff. Joe Judge, he's a no nonsense kind of guy. He's the Patriot way. I think that he'd be able to whip him up into shape. So I think they try to build even further upon that defense. They go get Micah Parsons, and they just try to make their strength even stronger because their offense, like I said, they have the skill positions, they have all the talent, they have all the things they need for Daniel Jones to have a successful season, except for maybe a super strong offensive line. But even then, they've invested heavily in offensive line the last few years, so I don't think they take another one in the first round without seeing these guys try to progress.
Understood. And yeah, I feel the same way. So yeah, I just yeah, Micah Parsons very good. And I didn't know about I didn't know about the off the field stuff, but if he does work out, this could be his like for David Gellman, he had Kuechly and Davis. Now he's gonna have
Mm-hmm.
Micah Parsons and Blake Martinez, who once again Blake Martinez very solid linebacker, and then Micah Parsons, very good. And on top of that, defense that was already very good last year. So
Yep.
yeah, I'm with you on that. So here we are at 12, the Eagles. We started the Jalen Hurts era. This is a tough one because especially wide receivers looking at right now, first two off the board. And I do like Jalen Waddle, but I don't think he can be a true 100% or a true fully outside wide receiver. Sorry, let me touch this. A true and then they just drafted a receiver first round last year, and this receiver's draft, the class is considered kind of deep. Um, man, I think this is they lost Ronald Darby too. This is a team that's rebuilding, and obviously they're not going to win this year. So I think this is where you take a little bit of a chance, and you go Caleb Farley. Don't have I mean, they still have Darius Slay, but as you've mentioned, like he's getting a little bit older.
Yeah.
You're going to be in division with the Dallas, and we just mentioned how good the receiving core the Giants have. Washington has a great young receiver, and I want to blank on his name, Terry McLaurin,
But they also added Curtis Samuel.
and
So
they
they
had
have
Curtis
two.
Samuel. So yeah, you're going to need a corner, even after Darius Slay. So I think Caleb Farley's the pick here. You can bring him along slowly, and you still have assets next year, and you have still a good high second round pick. I think you just need to, get the best available. That's not a quarterback or running back. If you are, the Philadelphia Eagles. So I was tempted to go line, but they 2 years ago got offensive tackle Andre Dillard. They still have Lane Johnson coming back and Kelsey and Brandon Brooks. So I don't think they'll pull the trigger on that yet. Only other position I also thought was edge. Maybe Quiddy Pay right here because Brandon Graham's getting older, and same thing with Fletcher Cox. But once again, I think they still have Derek Barnett from their draft 4 years
Mm-hmm.
ago. So going Caleb Farley here, a position that they've signed a bunch of corners, tried a bunch of them out, tried different things. I think this is what they just say: we're going to draft our guy. Hopefully the medicals clear out and he's fine, And if so, we got a baller at corner. So sorry, it took a little bit. Eagle. So I got Caleb Farley from Virginia Tech going to the Eagles at 12. Now at 13 at the L.A. Chargers. I almost said San Diego. L.A. Chargers are on the clock. John, who you getting for L.A. The other L.A. team?
For me, it's really between two position groups, and it's the trenches. It's either they get a pass rusher opposite of Joey Bosa. I believe Melvin Ingram's not there anymore. I think he's a free agent.
He is a
Might have
free
left.
agent. He's still a free
Yeah,
agent.
hasn't been signed yet. So that's a whole opposite of Joey Bosa. Um, but I also, I think they could use some offensive line help. To me, with Justin Herbert and the talent that he is, I'm going the same way that Cincinnati went. I think they want to protect their young quarterback. Also, if Rashawn Slater's there, I mean, just the way that a lot of people in the NFL talk about him, they're big fans of him, just his versatility, being able to play a lot of different spots along the offensive line. So I'm taking Rashawn Slater at the Chargers spot. I could see it, a edge rusher, like I said, to go opposite of Joey Bosa. But ultimately, I think when you have a young quarterback, you want to protect your investment and protect him so that he has a good start to his career. And they have a lot of weapons, so I think they're going to want to make sure that offense can really be consistent and not allow a lack of offensive line to ruin the weapons and talent that they do have.
All right. Yeah, I completely agree with that. Yeah, take the best offense. It's kind of similar to how the Bengals should see it. Take the best offensive lineman on the board because your offensive line was not great last year. So I'm completely on board with that. So now at 14, the Minnesota Vikings. Really, I'm just looking at edge. Their defense. We saw their defense kind of go through a transformation last year. It was kind of reverse of previous years, whereas more of the offense doing most of the heavy lifting, and the defense was kind of playing kind of the ones that had to catch up in terms of play level. So here I'm gonna have them get Quiddy. This is where Quiddy Pay I think he doesn't go past here. I mean, they need someone opposite Daniil Hunter, and who knows if Daniil Hunter is still gonna play too. He had those neck issues last season, and a big part of Mike Zimmer's defense is the front four getting home. And it's just been it's 2 years removed from losing Everson Griffin, and Linval Joseph, uh, and obviously Daniil Hunter. So now they'll grab Quiddy Pay, and they just signed Alvin Tomlinson. I think they still have Michael Pierce from the previous year. So if adding Quiddy, and if they do get back Daniil, they have the front four that Mike Zimmer wants. So going Quiddy Pay, edge rusher out of Michigan for the Minnesota Vikings at 14. And man, you got a real interesting one here. All right, New England Patriots. Bill Belichick probably hasn't picked this high in ever. At number 15, who did the New England Patriots go?
Yeah, this is another interesting one. I mean, you have a talent like Jalen Waddle, and we know that their receiver room hasn't necessarily been the most impressive over the last, few years.
They
Obviously,
just
they have
signed
Cam
two,
Newton for another year. Yeah.
two
What do you say?
receivers. They just signed two receivers too, so that makes
Yeah.
it even more interesting.
Yeah, they signed two guys. So we gotta see how that pans out. They have Cam Newton, so they don't necessarily need an instant quarterback, but they could take one. The defense, Bill always loves taking defensive players. I mean, realistically, I wouldn't be surprised if he took some guy that nobody's heard of, in this first round, because he tends to do that. But I'm thinking if they don't trade up and Trey Lance is there, I'm thinking Bill takes his swing and he goes and gets quarterback. Trey Lance, I mean, obviously, I think he's a developmental guy, but I think that helps that Cam Newton's there because if they want Trey to develop into anybody in this league, it's probably Cam Newton. Big arm, fast, athletic. I mean, he could be the next Cam Newton. And so I think he would just fit there when it comes to being able to sit behind Cam, learn from him, all that kind of stuff. And like I said, I mean, we haven't seen the Patriots take sort of a swing like that in a long time, but also they had Tom Brady for a long time. And now they're in flux. They don't have him. I think Bill's going to want to be aggressive, make a move here, get his guy. Like I said, I think realistically they're a candidate to trade up into that top 10, get a Fields or someone like that higher. But if Trey Lance is there at 15, yeah, I mean, that's just the biggest need. It's a quarterback league. You have to have a quarterback. Bill knows that. I mean, defensively, he can figure everything else out. But if he doesn't have a quarterback, then there's only so much they can realistically do. And with Cam at his age, I don't think they're really banking on him being their long-term option. So I think just with everything combined, I'm going Trey Lance.
Alrighty, so let me put Trey Lance on there for the New England Patriots.